Hello, good evening, and welcome back. So even when the government actively takes your money to give to people in order for them to have worthwhile skills and get a better life for themselves, it's still not good enough, because there might be something slightly wrong with how they portray it. As we see here, Culture Secretary Oliver Dowden apologises for a crass advert suggesting a ballerina retrains in cybersecurity after Twitter outrage, so a few commenters, despite it coming from a scheme launched before coronavirus, a couple of years back, 2017 in fact. Advert for training scheme featured a young dancer tying up her ballet pumps. It shows soon. The caption said, Fatima's next job could be in cyber, doesn't know it yet. Savage Garden's Darren Hayes said, stick with your dreams, don't listen to this. And DJ Fatboy Slim and author Caitlin Moran have also hit out at the ad's message. So, the ad in question is here. Fatima's next job could be in cyber, she just doesn't know it yet. And there's the lady in question there, based out of Atlanta, actually, the original photo, as it happens. But the whole point of this scheme is to say, if you're doing something and you're finding that there isn't enough demand for it, to be perfectly honest, you're not a good enough performer in an overcrowded field to get a living out of it, then by all means keep doing it because you enjoy doing it. But bear in mind, you also have to afford to live, in which case it might be worthwhile going into a field where the bar for entry is a little lower and you can get by a lot easier. And then you still have time to do the things that you like doing, but then not as a career, but instead as a hobby on the side. And if you develop those skills, then by all means do turn it into a career later on. Or, of course, you can take the Sylvester Stallone approach, where he did not want a regular job, and instead he went around New York asking again for acting roles, auditioning, getting turned down, writing his own script. Of course, in the end, he tried to find a way around it, and finally found someone who relented and said, yeah, okay, cool, we'll pay for the script and we'll let you be in the movie and we'll let you direct it, but we're not going to give you much. In fact, they would pay more if he wasn't in the movie. They didn't trust him at all as an actor. But hey, he made it work, and he thought that getting a regular job would take away from his goal, his dream, and that is why he did not get a regular job, even though it meant selling off his partner's jewellery and selling his dog as well, which he did buy back as well after the success of Rocky. But that was his mentality for it. And by all means, you can go through that. I mean, it could be the survivor bias, in which case it might be, if you wish to go for something like ballet here, cool. In that case, get a job in the industry that you're looking to work in. So supporting the ballets that are going on, for example. However, you can do that working behind the scenes, generating those relationships with the better performers and making yourself known to the people who are then recruiting and putting on the ballets. And then you might even be able to train with the ballerinas that are then performing. And then you also know the moves and the sequences, and therefore if somebody is injured, you will be called up, and then that would be your big break. That kind of thing is a much more practical way, instead of just slogging along for it and just hoping that something is going to fall into your lap. But thankfully, I haven't seen, I'm sure there are, any comments saying, oh, you can't do this because it's racist, because you can be sure that they had to pick a non-white woman for this advert. They had to, and they've since changed it to Baker. But the backlash has predominantly been because there is a misinformed thought that the government isn't doing enough to support performing arts. And yes, it's definitely the government's fault for the lockdown and their response to it. They have to take full accountability for what they have done in response. And in doing so, they can say, yeah, it sucks, but we've done the right thing because the alternative was significantly worse from China. I disagree, but if that's their position, stick with it. And also then, you have to be accountable and responsible for all the unforeseen consequences from it. And you have to do a hell of a lot of damage control if you're going to interfere with so many people's lives. In fact, everybody's life so directly. It's an impossible position that you're putting yourself in. But if that's what you're going for, then you better be ready to try and deal with it after the fact. But nonetheless, any of these, specifically with university degrees, with the performing arts, that they're lovely to do. And of course, there are people that are intended for it and It is something that is meaningful for them, but at the same time, there isn't a lot of draw for it. And some of these courses as well, that you end up just being a professor for it, and that is the only really job opening for it. What that means is that you might have a professor who then lectures 50 people, but then only one of those 50 could replace them because they're going to lecture another 50 people. Otherwise, you've got a kind of pyramid, multi-level marketing, Ponzi scheme kind of thing going on. In which case, what are those other 49 people going to do? Be baristas, essentially. That's about it, unfortunately. And maybe they should have known that beforehand because of parental guidance, perhaps, or teachers who are more concerned about the well-being of their students instead of just how many can you ship off to university. And that is why only about a sixth of university students will pay back their debt in full, and you have to, on average, be in the top 10% of income earners in order to pay off your student debt in full. So the numbers, quite simply, do not add up. So in that instance, it's not the government's fault for you picking a degree that's useless, but it is the government's fault for getting involved in student loans and student debt, for allowing the prices to get so high because, hey, the government's paying, so who cares? And also suggesting that they're something worthwhile to do, and they're not. Whereas, of course, if the government left out, then you'd have a fair market value for the cost of degrees, and also then the loans would balance out to say, well, hey, you'd have an angel investor of sorts to pay for your degree, but they will expect a, let's say, 5% return for the next 20 years on any income that you make. And then it would be that kind of setup instead. But back to the humour. In response, here was the top 4 picks from the Daily Mail saying Rishi's next job could be in baggage handling. He just doesn't know it yet. Dom's next job could be castle tour guide. He just doesn't know it yet. Oliver's next job could be a chocolate teapot. He just doesn't know it yet. And Boris's next job could be anywhere else, and we'd all be better off. Rethink, reskill, reboot. Except for him, it's just rethink, remove, reboot. And he's put himself in an impossible situation. So, at the end of the day, you've got to be accountable for your own actions. But that is the state of play as it happens. So it's a government-funded organisation, but it wasn't the government that directly did that. And Downing Street is saying, oh yeah, this is very crass and we don't support it either. And as far as I can see, they're not going for principle. They're basically just saying, here's the thing that's happening. Oh shit, there's a vocal minority that doesn't like it. Let's apologise for this then, guys, and distract ourselves away from important work. Okay, time to try again then. But the comments on this article in particular, the top one is akin to, there are 2 which are akin to this. One is, yeah, and do reskill, but make sure that you're acquainted with Microsoft and Windows of 1995 so that you're ready for a governmental job. And the other one is, yeah, it would be nice if instead of going down against like performing arts or whatever a job that they want, if they then went, maybe their own jobs aren't worthwhile and they could just retrain, reskill, reboot to be a helpful, contributing member of the society instead of a parliamentarian. But as always, let me know what you guys think down below. Is this just a backlash because it's a non-white woman, or is there something more to it? Is the attacks on it being against performing arts misguided and people should just take responsibility for their own actions, both governments and individuals alike? Either way, let me know down below. Always intrigued to hear what you have to say. And as always, until next time, have a good one.